Listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Nasello on RiverBender.com.
Control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade. And the papers want to know whose shirt you wear.
9:17, welcome back. Monday morning hitting you. Third day of June belongs to Kristi Davis, OSF Healthcare. How are you doing again?
I'm doing really well. The weather outside is so good. I heard you talking about it.
Is it
so
humid?
Nice. Me, personally, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I'll take this over that snow and ice we get every single
Oh,
day.
yeah, 100%. And then, I'm always the person, though, Kristi, that goes, man, I'm tired of it being humid already. And then by September and October, when it cools down, I'm like, where's the heat going?
Yeah.
It's too cold out there.
Yeah, I'd rather have the heat all day long.
So June, we are in June.
We are.
Is Dysphagia Month.
Dysphagia or dysphagia, either which way is good. But May actually was Better Speech and Hearing Month, and it goes right into June, which is Dysphagia Awareness Month. So you're good on both counts.
All right, let's talk about this.
Okay.
Number one, what's dysphagia?
So dysphagia is a very fancy word that means difficulty swallowing. And everybody has had that moment where you drink something, you eat something, you laugh or whatever, and it feels like it's going down the wrong way. It's because sometimes it does.
Really?
Yeah.
And now, I'm sure some people have more of an issue with this than others do, and I got to ask you,
Yeah.
I think I've been doing some wrong swallowing practices. Hear me out here. I've gotten used to the whole Advil thing in the morning. Pop a 2 Advil, feel pretty good. And I'm not using water. Is that going to cause me some issues later on down the road?
Personally, I would like you to use a little bit of water. As we age or grow wiser, as I like to tell everybody, everything kind of dries out a little bit. And there have been cases of people that do pills and get it in the mouth and in the throat where it's really dry, and it'll actually stick to the inside of your throat.
Oh.
So maybe use a little bit of water next time.
There we go. Well, Kristi, for the folks at home that don't remember our last chat, fill us in on what you do at OSF Healthcare before we start talking about this important topic.
Sure. So I am a speech language pathologist. Some people call it an SLP for short, and not a whole lot of people know what I do, and that's okay. It's kind of like,
now fill us in on what you do.
right. I like when people underestimate me. So in SLP, a lot of people think of like a speech teacher for when their kids were little and having trouble doing their R's. But a speech language pathologist, we actually see people throughout their whole entire lifespan. So those babies who are born too early or with some extra needs, they might be seeing people in the NICU to help them with feeding or swallowing. And of course, we have that large group of speech teachers or speech pathologists who are in the schools helping kids with their language, with their talking, with their sound. There's even a whole avenue for speech pathologists. If you've ever heard your favorite celebrity on a movie doing a weird accent, a lot of SLPs are actually helping them get that Irish slang or that modification. It also goes the other way. So if we have somebody from a different part of the world coming in and they're trying to do their English, it's an SLP who helps them kind of smooth that out, make it a little bit more clear. But on the other end of the spectrum, when we talk about babies and adults, I actually work with older adults. So, everybody swallows every single day, of course.
Right.
It's up to like 1,000 times a day that you swallow. So my specialty is actually swallowing disorders. So when everyone thinks first of maybe someone having a stroke, for example.
Yep.
And swallowing is one of those things that's affected. Everyone thinks, the facial droop. But really, the brain has the center for everything. So swallowing, talking. So if you break your brain during a stroke, you could also experience up to 80% of people have trouble swallowing.
What about falls? Does that affect it too? If you fall hard on the back of your, if you hit the back of your head in a certain way, does that have a similar effect too?
So you could have a concussion, you could have a head injury. And sometimes I see people for that to actually work on cognition and memory and things like that. But yeah, if you hit your head hard enough, you could also have trouble swallowing. So, but adults with or children with CP, dementia, Parkinson's disease, ALS, all of those things, swallowing is a symptom, or difficulty is swallowing is a symptom of one of those. And so we've got to work on taking care of that.
Well, and I could only imagine, just when you were talking about the 1,000 times a day, we probably know as people 10 times or 12 that we probably swallowed, the day and go, oh yeah, I did, just have to swallow there.
Yeah.
But my thought is, Kristi, at night, when we're sleeping, we don't realize that our body's still doing those, natural things like swallowing, breathing, everything else. But what happens if you have that difficulty swallowing and you're going to bed and you're waking up with major issues? Do you help tackle that too?
Absolutely. So people who don't have trouble, you actually swallow about 3 times an hour in your sleep.
That's wild. See, I figured.
So, but then again, we grow wiser, the swallow slows down. People get a little bit more weight on them and they get sleep apnea, for example, or you get acid reflux from eating too much barbecue the night before. Things can actually come up from your stomach and they can get as high as your throat, and you can actually get things falling into your airway, which is where all of this becomes really a problem. So it can come in through your throat, you swallow wrong, it gets into your lungs, or you eat a little bit too much, drink a little bit too much the night before, it can actually come up and it can cause different types of injury if it gets into your lungs.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
It can be very dangerous, yeah.
What are some of the things that you have to work on with your patients that are having some of those difficulties? Because to me, it's, you can easily put a Band-Aid on a cut, but how do you really work the internal, workings of our muscle system and our, digestive system and all of those things?
Yeah, so swallowing alone works about 50 different pairs of muscles within your mouth and in your throat.
That's
so
wild.
if you think of like a trauma or like stroke, or one whole side is affected, you have a left and a right side. So if one whole side is affected and you have to squeeze during that swallow and you're not getting that squeeze, it's falling the wrong way. So the first thing I usually do is I see a lot of people within the emergency room, if we're using stroke as an example, and I will come in at the bedside or at the stretcher and I'll talk to them and figure out their risk factors, because some people are going to be at a higher risk than others. There's also 2 main ways that we like to look at it as SLPs. One is a video x-ray. So I take them into a small x-ray suite. We turn on the camera. I give them things to eat. It doesn't taste very good because it's x-ray contrast. Yeah, I always tell them I am a bad cook, but I just...
With all the advancements in medicine, you'd think they'd make a better tasting x-ray contrast.
Yeah, you would think, but no, not so much. And so then I give people different things to eat and we watch that, and I can actually see them chew, I can see them swallow, because the airway is really close to the esophagus. And so if one pathway is taken over the other, I can actually see that happening. And from that way, I can see what muscles we need to work on. If it's a strength problem, if it's a structural problem, if they really did, I have had people swallow their denture in the wrong place. And
No way.
yeah, so don't sleep with those either when you get that.
How do you get that out?
That's where my friends, my physicians come in handy. I will get a picture and go, I have somebody for you today. And they will have to go in with a very tiny tube-like thing and go in and grab it and pull it out.
Oh my good! I could imagine the pain of that though.
Thankfully, we knock people out for that. So,
No, I mean, just feeling
yeah.
it though, whenever it's lodged, that's
Yes.
gotta hurt too.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got to ask you, before we go any further here, Kristi, how'd you get into this? Was this something you always wanted to do? Does it hit close to home? Is there a tie-in?
Well, I am homegrown. I am from around here. Generations have been around here. So I was going to Lewis and Clark. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I thought maybe sign language interpreter. So I was going and taking all the classes, and I go to my counselor and I said, okay, I'm getting ready to transfer. What do you think? My counselor said, well, I've heard that you like to talk a lot. This is an absolute true story. I hear that you like to talk a lot. So when you go over to SIUE, I want you to try this speech pathology, like 101 class, and see what you think about it. And I sat there for a moment and I'm like, is he trying to be helpful, or is this like a backhanded kind of compliment? I wasn't quite sure what that was. So I tried out the class. I'm like, so I get to talk all day and I get to help people. I could do that. So I haven't looked back.
Yeah, win-win. Now, how'd you get to OSF? Was it just, we already talked roots were here. Was this just the landing spot you wanted to be at?
I love the sense of community. And we are so fortunate in the St. Louis region. We have so many different hospitals that specialize in so many things. But OSF brings that great, like, boutique almost feel.
Yeah.
You get that personal feel. I can look at the whole person because I've got time to do so. And then my favorite thing is being in the community. I can go to, like, the store, the grocery store, wherever. Usually, I don't shop shop. My husband does. I just push the cart.
Oh, good for you. That's awesome.
Right? It is, yeah.
Tell them your secrets here.
I am. I'm very spoiled. But my favorite thing is seeing that person that I helped at the hospital in those places, and they don't recognize me anymore. And I am a memory. And I love that. That means we did our job as therapists, because I work a lot with our physical therapist, our occupational therapist. And that's our goal, is to get you back home. And what better place to do that than closer to home?
Well, honestly, too, Kristi, all the advancements that you guys have made, not patronage because you're here, but I mean, everything you guys have added the last 4 or 5 years has just made it even better to not have to drive across the war zone that's 270, you know, and you get quality care. But, you know, my grandma was an ICU nurse at St. Anthony's, and she was there forever. And it's so cool to see some folks that, you know, some of them were on the, you know, a very dire situation and, you know, they lost a loved one. But 25 years later, they're still going, hey, thanks for taking care of, you know, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And it's not the patient normally, it's the loved one, because they were, you know, more observant. But it just really, it shows how much care, how much effort it takes to really be a community hospital, too.
It does, because I have worked at different hospitals in my career, some big, some really big, but you don't have that opportunity to have that personal touch with people. And it's so much fun, like I said, being in the community, or seeing the sister, or seeing the mom that later comes to the hospital and said, I had to come back to see you guys because I felt taken care of. Yeah. And that means a lot. We get to take care of our patients in every way and in all ways.
Absolutely.
So.
And you don't have anyone, you know, in a Nissan Altima with temp tags running you off the road on the way to work. That's always good. Yes. You know, with that being said, Kristi, we talked a little bit about some of the work that you do, but let's go a little bit further. So we talked strokes, but is there any other common disorders that you would help treat?
So there's so many in a typical day that I can see.
Really?
We talked about growing wiser. So dementia is one of those things. So as people grow wiser, the swallow also slows down. People lose their teeth. They don't want to wear their dentures when they're sick and in the hospital, and that's absolutely okay. We've had some people, unfortunately, who have things like Parkinson's disease, and that's a lifelong, progressively degenerative disease. So you might be eating something, regular foods like French fries and hamburgers early on, but later you come to see me and maybe something has changed and we have to make those foods softer. I also see a lot of people with head and neck cancer, for example, and while they're going through the journey, we have to make a lot of changes depending on the treatment that they're going through, including the most invasive, my last resort is a feeding tube in the belly, and some people cannot eat by mouth. Now, can you imagine going through a day and not eating or drinking?
I could not imagine that at all.
Yeah.
Because I would assume, I'm not a medical expert, obviously, that's why I host a talk show and talk to experts, is the fact that, you know, even though you're getting nutrients, you aren't getting that satisfaction because you
Exactly.
aren't. Yeah. Is that true?
Exactly. So people miss that so much. And if you think about when your loved one is sick, what do? You want to bring them chicken noodle soup. It's a social thing.
Yeah.
Swallowing is such a big deal. And when you have to take that away in certain disease processes, my goal, of course, number one, first is I want you to be safe. I don't want you choking. I don't want it going down the wrong way. If it goes down the wrong way, we'll have something even like a pneumonia that can crop up.
Oh.
Yeah. So sometimes I have to say, okay, we cannot eat by mouth right now. We're going to put this tube in your belly, but the plan is to get it out later.
What happens, and I know that, you know, I'm kind of jumping around here,
You're good.
but it's whenever you were talking, it just, all these thoughts come to mind. For someone that has something like an MS, you know, or something to where we know that, you know, this is going to keep getting progressively worse as we go down this journey. How do you tackle that with somebody that, you know, maybe is having an issue swallowing, going through some type of degenerative disease, knowing the end game is what it is?
Right.
What do those conversations look like? But what does the care look like too? Because you said 50 different muscles to swallow. Can you target certain muscles just to get them to work for the time being if something else starts to fail? Is that how, is there something there?
Yeah, it depends on the disease process. So MS, for example, it has flares. So some days you're great and other days you're not. So you might come in on one of those flares to come see me, and burger and fries might have been yesterday's menu, but today you're having a flare and now you can't chew.
Yeah.
So then I go in and we have to figure out, okay, what does work? Can you drink smoothies today? Then we'll work on smoothies because we can add tricks and tips, and that way we can avoid any kind of feeding tube. Sometimes we can't. Some diseases progress to the point things need to be removed, for example, in head and neck cancers. But advances have come so far. We have a great cancer center.
Yeah,
and
you
so I work with that team a lot, and we sit down and we're like, what can we do for this patient? 20, 30 years ago, they would just take everything out and be like, okay, well, you're alive. Yay. And then you get a tube in your belly. Now it's what can we do? And we work within this team. What can we do to give the best option and the best life? When I see people in the hospital, I always say it's like a triangle. At the top of the triangle is safety. So I don't want you to get sick. I don't want you to choke. But for some people, I do see at the end of life, and safety isn't really the biggest priority.
Comfortability, correct?
Yeah, so we want enjoyment because I have a lot of people are like, no, thanks, I'll take my chocolate cake and coffee.
Yeah.
Cool, let's do that. So then we try to figure out the best way or the safest way that you can still have food and still have that enjoyment, still have those memories with your family, mom's spaghetti and meatballs or something like that, but still not causing you pain or discomfort or a lot of injury.
Right. Well, and before we take a quick pause, one quick question for you before we come back. When you treat different ages, because I'm sure you've had to treat a child or somebody that's younger, how does the care kind of differ when you are working with a 7, 8-year-old, 12-year-old compared to someone that's maybe 65, 70? Is it just the way you go about it to make sure they're comfortable and knowing, hey, here's what's going on? Do you have any fun little kind of nicknames or games that you do to kind of keep them occupied? How does that look?
So with kids, I get to have fun. I get to play.
That makes sense. I was kind of wondering that. That's cool.
So when the kids, we get to play with our food. We get to touch our food. We get to use our hands more and goldfish crackers, whatever that may be. And I don't have to use all those big girl words. I can, instead of saying epiglottis, I can say that flappy thing. Some days we have those days where those big words aren't coming out anyway. So it's easier
Normally me on the show.
Yeah. Right? And I talk all day. So sometimes we get into that point of the day, I'm like, the thing. And it happens to the best of us. But with some adults, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's so absolutely true. So if I go in and go, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, I'm not looking at that person. Yeah. But if I go in and go, what's your goal? Like, is your goal to go home and have your chocolate cake and your coffee? Is your goal to get better? Do you want all your teeth pulled? That's our starting point, not exactly like where I'm looking at anymore.
That's really fascinating. Do you have a moment to stick around?
I do.
9:34. I was getting ready to ask more questions, but I got to pay some bills here. I'm going to get in trouble. Hey, let me fill you. We're talking about swallowing and how important that is. And you were just mentioning teeth. For all you little ones out there that are going into middle school, parents, I get it. You're at the braces stage in life, and good luck. However, whenever you're making that decision, let me fill you in on Haug Orthodontics. They're locally trusted, and they've been here for over a decade. Dr. Haug's office really treats you just like Kristi does, as a person. Where you're bringing your child in, maybe you're going in yourself. You aren't going in feeling nervous. Your child isn't going in feeling like, oh my goodness, what happens here in about 30 minutes? You're just going to go see Dr. Haug, and she's going to take care of you. That personal approach that really helps you keep moving on down the road, especially when it comes to orthodontics. And let me fill you in on Invisalign treatments. That's the big thing right now, and so many things online. Have you seen those where you can get those made in 2 days and they ship them to? Do you really want to take the chance on whatever the hell they threw in that plastic? I mean, let's be honest here. You don't even know what's in your energy drink anymore, let alone your Invisalign. But when you go to Dr. Haug's office, the Invisalign is top of the line. We're talking top tier, but the care that you receive is even better. I encourage you to stop by Dr. Haug's office, and don't forget to tell him that CJ sent you over their way.
When I got in the car accident at the ER, they gave me a prescription of hydrocodone, and over time it took more medication to mask the pain. I moved over to drug seeking and found heroin and fentanyl. I went to the Centerstone rehab facility, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life. I have my own car, I have a job, there's nothing holding me back anymore.
Dream Home Realty Center.
Hey Sherry, talk to me, Dream Team. We've got showing.
Yo, what up? It's Mike Keith, the proud graduate of Lewis and Clark Community College. I got my start in broadcasting and now I work all over the country. I discovered my path in media, but I could have been an electrician. Or I could have been a nurse.
Maybe not.
We are Phillips 66 Wood River Refinery. We make the fuels that take us to work and our children to school. We make materials and energy products that allow us to stay connected to each other. We care about the quality and safety of our products because we care about the communities we share. Our employees live our values of safety, honor, and a commitment to act as good neighbors where we live and operate. We are Phillips 66. Welcome back to our daily show. Here's CJ.
Still trying to make a name, knowing nothing's gonna change what I am. I was a young troubadour when I wrote.
Welcome back. 9:38, a little bit of change on this Monday morning. Kristi Davis back in studio. We're just talking. So dental or oral health really does play a factor in swallowing disorders sometimes?
Oh my gosh, yes, so much so. So if you have an open wound, you're going to treat it. You're going to clean it, right? People don't treat their mouth that way, and it's a big open space to the inside of your body. So if you have germs from a decayed tooth and you swallow some of that germ, or that germ makes it into from your mouth to your lungs, you can absolutely get respiratory disease. You can get bronchitis. You can get a pneumonia. But there's also this huge correlation with things even like dementia being associated with bad teeth.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why. Go to your dentist.
Yes, please.
Do I have a dentist? Oh, I orthodontist. I need a dental sponsor now.
Yes. So during COVID, what I was noticing a lot of times, a lot of people who were very, very, very sick had really bad teeth, and the people who had really good teeth weren't necessarily there. So I started looking into all that research behind it. And there are so many things like your cardiovascular risk with strokes, all related to oral health.
Isn't that wild, though, to think that, I mean, it's not when you put it all together.
Right.
If you really break it down, it makes so much sense. But when you say it as a blanket statement, it just kind of makes your eyes go wide because of how much that comes into play.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a crazy question?
Course.
Okay, I'm throwing you on the spot here. Tim, I got your questions, but I'm just adding to them here. RFK has, obviously a speech issue. What is that disease? Do you know what it is?
So RFK
Jr., the presidential candidate, he can't really speak very well. He has a illness where it's like it basically killed his voice box, and he has a really hard time swallowing and speaking and projecting. And it's become kind of a conversation piece throughout pundits.
So I don't know exactly what he had, but it could be, if I'm just guessing. So some people have a mass or a cyst in that area, and some people have thyroid cyst, and that can get in there.
Spasmodic dysphonia.
Oh, yes. Okay. So that is something different. That is a neurologic kind of thing. So where those messages aren't getting from the brain to those working parts smoothly.
Okay.
And so you can have some vocal issues that way. And that's another thing. It can flare up. It can be great for a little while and then not so much. But when you talk about dysphonia, dys being like a dysfunction, and phonia being voice, and then you think of spasmodic, so like a spasm of the voice is what you're getting.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad I started throwing questions out there. Well, and now as we get back to dysphagia, did I say it right?
Yeah.
Am I getting there?
You're getting it.
I'm trying here. When we talk about all the work that you guys do at OSF, what does the work kind of look like patient by patient? What's it start like? If I just show up and meet you for the first time, what does that care plan look like?
Well, if you would come to me, I do have some students that come and observe. Right away, we grab my laptop and my list of patients to see, and we're heading straight to the ICU. So we do the doctor rounding. So that's nurse, that's social work, that's PT, OT, the dietitian, pediatrician, the pharmacy group, they all come in and we talk about each individual patient that's in the ICU to figure out what's going on. Now, speech, we work on a number of different things, even though this is June for National Dysphagia Awareness Month, but we also work on like the brain. So cognition, in case someone gets confused, if they've had a concussion or a head injury, someone who has a speech problem, maybe their teeth fell out and their L's don't work, for example. So that could be something that I work on as well. Somebody may have a breathing tube in, and once that breathing tube comes out, I have to see them for swallowing issue to make sure if you think about a tube being shoved in your mouth, it can cause injury.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure you can have that soda or that energy drink before we just let you have it willy-nilly. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we go any further, too, let me ask you a little bit more. One final big question about dysphagia.
Sure.
Is it reversible?
yes, so it's very, very dynamic. Yes.
This is really fascinating.
Yeah, so remember, it's a symptom of something.
Okay.
So when we talk about head and neck cancer, when your treatments go away and all the medicine that's trying to kill the cancer goes away, your swallowing can get better and can improve. With stroke, if it's a muscle issue, we can improve those muscles, just like if you have difficulty walking. So there are some areas, of course, when we talk about ALS or those end-of-life issues where weakness is just more pronounced, we can do some things, but I can't fix it.
Right.
But we can make those changes so you can still have that energy drink over there. Yeah.
Jet fuel.
Your jet fuel.
These gotta go. I'm telling you, that's gonna be between that and nicotine this year. I'm making some changes,
There you
Kristi.
go.
When I see us next time, you're gonna go, man, why is he so grumpy today? As we keep moving forward, I know that the mall has a spot for OSF healthcare.
Yes.
And now, what does that rehab office in the mall offer when it comes to dysphagia? How do people get in touch, reach out, all of that fun stuff?
Absolutely. So our outpatient services, we outgrew our previous place.
That's a good problem to have.
It's a great problem to have, but when you needed something sooner. So the mall had a great space that we were able to modify. So physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy is out there. We've got a great gym for the adults, and we've got a nice little gym for the kids as well. So we can see all ages and stages for different needs. If you have, my daughter actually just went for physical therapy. She is a runner and a softball player, and she does all kinds of sports and was having a knee issue. So I took her to my pals out there, and they worked her over so she can get back to the, cross country starts this week. So she'll be going. So they see a little bit of everything there. So even my people that I will see in the hospital, that's where I send them. It's over to my buddies. And it's a great facility over there if you get a chance to come out. I'd love for you to take a tour.
And go say hi to Kristi.
Yeah.
How about that? It's always great talking to you, Kristi, and really just really interesting information this month. And going forward, if folks have any more questions, or maybe all of a sudden they wake up one day and they're starting to realize they have this problem, is it better to call the primary care to say, hey, I'm having some problem swallowing, to see what the next step is, and kind of go from there?
Well, now that we're talking about it, are you having trouble swallowing today?
No. Well, actually, no, breathing.
Because it's so funny when I talk about this, you see everyone starting to swallow on their own, for sure. So yes, your first step if you're starting to have trouble, or if you notice a nagging annoyance, is to call your primary, of course. If something's sudden, if you're choking or something like that, please get more urgent care. I do have some people who will swallow too big of a piece of chicken and it gets stuck in their esophagus. That's something to come in and see us sooner for.
I wanted to ask you, this isn't dysphagia related, but kind of the same thing with swallowing. I know of folks that their esophagus gets smaller as so they have to get it stretched?
Yes, that's actually another form of dysphagia. Is
No way.
esophageal. Yes. So sometimes,
Let's talk about this. Yeah.
So if you think about the esophagus as almost like a tube sock, like elastic and things like that. So for some people, it's almost like taking an elastic hair tie and putting it over a portion of that tube sock, and it can get a little bit tighter. Now, if you remember from school, it's got to have that squeeze, that peristalsis that goes from the top to the bottom. When you have a hair tie in the way, it messes that up. So sometimes we have to go in, our GI doctors will go in and they'll take something and kind of break that elastic so it opens back up. That can happen from acid reflux. That can happen from age, all kinds of interesting things. Eat too big a piece of chicken and you laugh and it goes the wrong way and it gets stuck. That can also be a part of it. So sometimes, especially with my wiser folks, that's actually the first thing they start complaining about is discomfort in the chest and things getting stuck, because it actually is.
I'll be dang. That's actually really fast. I'm glad I asked that. How about that? I asked one good question today at 9:46. Kristi, before I take a quick break, really appreciate your time and always thanks for stopping.
Thanks for having me as always. And I like to talk. Have me anytime. I'll come.
I'm glad your counselor made a good call there. Yeah?
I did.
With that being said, before we take a quick break, let me fill you in on Hainer Library. I need you to get your library card, but Kristi, don't hold this against me. I may or may not have filled out my library card application a couple of months ago, and guess who hasn't gone by and picked it up yet?
Oh, you should. They're great over there.
They're going to start charging me rent for that library. At Hainer Library, you can join Executive Director Mary Cordes and myself on the first and last Mondays of each month when we go through beyond the shelves of Hainer Library and learn all about the benefits and all the resources that are there, from their consumer report guides to the Library of Things to the Seed Library that we're going to learn about on Wednesday. There's so much more coming down the pipeline, and you need to get your library card to be a part of the fun. Go to HainerLibrary.org and you can sign up today. You get ad-free, for free streaming with Biblio Plus. You can unlock the door to everything, adventure, knowing, and fun by going to HainerLibrary.org.